When Itchy Break was created, the whole premise was to make sure people understood to take a break from themselves. We all need those reminders to laugh, to love, to have fun, and be a little silly. Just be in the moment and take a break. That's our mission. Just take a break and reset yourself. So welcome to It's Your Break.
Welcome to It's Your Break. Hi, I'm Jonathan Mertz, and coming up, we're going to be setting you up for a good story. And not just any story. Stories that surround life, stories that involve the movie Jaws, and stories about taking different parts of your life and other people's lives and putting them together. It's coming up next with Drew Robinson here on It's Your Break. Hey, you. Are you following us? Oh, don't worry. You should be. You should be following us everywhere. On our socials, like Instagram, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, all at It's Your Break. And you should be consuming us on your favorite podcast app, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Audible, and iHeartRadio. So, it's okay. We want you to follow us. And remember to like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, leave us a comment or two, and maybe even a review. Welcome back to It's Your Break. And Drew Robinson is joining me right now, who is a prolific storyteller who has written a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm not kidding. A bunch of stuff. And we'll get into some of that later in the interview. But right now, Drew, I want to thank you for coming on the show. You know, I invited you here because we're going to be talking a lot about storytelling today. And one of the things that you like to do is to tell stories. And you have such a good setup on different types of stories. But one in particular that I want to focus on first is the one that involves the movie Jaws.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, to say one story about Jaws, that's that's not doing it justice. There's a lot of stories I could tell you about that, because the movie, as you know, as any true fan of the movie will tell you, was filmed on Martha's Vineyard Island. When I was a little kid, my parents had a cottage there in the town of Oak Bluffs, in what's known as the campgrounds. And my dad always said that Oak Bluffs was the poor man's town on the rich man's island, because, you know, Martha's Vineyard, that's where the Kennedys hung out, you know, all the other fancy schmancy rich folk. But Oak Bluffs is where just the regular working class people could afford a little cottage and be able to spend the summer. And the summer of '74, well, that's when the Jaws crew arrived in April. And as it happened, also my sister-in-law at the time, Susan, she got a job on the production. She was one of the people operating the shark. Because you got to remember, this is the '70s. There was no CGI.
Right.
Everything you see in that movie, that is practical effects. And right from the get-go, and again, I'm sure lots of people are aware of this, but Bruce didn't work. He had been designed and built in a freshwater tank in California. Seemed someone neglected to tell him that the Atlantic Ocean is salt. So when he arrived, and they put him in the water, well, things rusted, things corroded, things dissolved, and he sank to the bottom. So Spielberg is like, what are we supposed to do? It's like, God, we got to fix the shark, get somebody work on fixing him. So while they're working on that, as I say, they're there in April, and so they figure, okay, let's shoot a whole bunch of the scenes that are on the land. Anything that's on the land where we don't need the shark, we'll film now. So they started doing that. And of course, there's the scene at the billboard with the mayor and Hooper, and someone's painted the shark fin on the bill and said "Help Shark" on the woman. If you look at the grass around them, it's not exactly very green, and that's because it was still very early in the season, still pretty chilly in the evenings there, and so not very green grass. Anyway, finally, they came to the point where it's like, geez, we have to start filming some actual shark stuff. And of course, one of the most famous, that opening scene, Chrissy getting attacked by the shark. and they had nothing. It's like, could he just, appear? Could we have the fin, cut through the nothing? They had nothing available. So they were really desperate. Well, one of the stunt guys came up with an idea. He says, we're going to put this harness on Susan, down on the water, and we're going to attach these cables onto the sides here. And so one will go off to one side, one to the other, to these underwater buoys, and then we turn, and then they go up to the beach, and then we'll have these 2 teams of men, and we'll make marks in the sand, and then we just run back and forth, going like this, and she'll get pulled around in the water, and she can scream and thrash around. And Spielberg was like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Was it he felt kind of the same way he did about the original Jaws theme when John Williams played it for him the first? Is this a joke? You can't be serious.
Right.
This has got to. When people hear this, they've got to be terrified. You're right to their bone marrow. They have to be utterly terrified. Don't worry, Steve and I'll do an arrangement. It'll be perfect. Okay. So they decide to try this thing with Susan, and the other thing was, well, they had to shoot it during the day. And again, if you watch the movie and you look up into the night sky, it really isn't all that dark, and you can actually see the sun at one point. Because again, the guys had to be able to see what they were doing.
Right.
So they do that back and forth.
Blue filters only go so good.
Yeah,
Those
only
gels.
works so much.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the next thing they were trying to do was the Alex Kittner scene. And this presented them with a number of issues. First off, they were filming it is still early in the season. This was like May. And you got to think about New England seawater. It's cold. I mean, it's cold like probably 10 months out of the year. It's not really comfortable until about August. So again, if you watch the scenes that are at the beach with all the people there clustered in the little buildings and all that, and when they go to a long shot and you see them all there, if you look further down the beach, you'll notice there's nobody there. And that's because nobody's dumb enough to go in the water. when those extras were told, hey, when the lifeguard blows the whistle, just run out of the water because that's the shark attacking, they didn't have to be told twice. The minute they heard that whistle, boom, they were out of that water like a shot because these people were freezing to death. And I get to give kudos to some of them that, like, they're supposed to be swimming in their water, all smiles and chatting away, and it's like they're dying. They're turning blue. I mean, but anyway, when it came time for the Alex Kittner scene, by that point, they had Bruce working. And so they were going to try doing the actual showing the shark attack. I was like, here we go. We got this. And so they set up, again, the stunt guys got everything all prepped. They got the little float. They had this dummy of Alex all packed with blood packs and raw chicken and all kinds of stuff. They set in the one. They said, okay. So then Bruce rises up out of the water, chomps down on it, and then dives up. They did a test of it. And the entire cast and crew were like, oh, my God, that's disgusting. And of course, the stunt guy's like, well, what do you think? That's what you wanted, You asked for a shark attack. I mean, this is what we're giving you. And I was like, no, you guys. Because Spielberg, his attitude was they were shooting for a PG rating. Now, of course, these days we'd say, well, wait a minute, PG? Why? Come on, you want an R? Yeah, No. This was the 70s. They wanted to maximize their audience. So the goal was go for PG. So, and then the other thing there was still one other issue with poor old Brucey there was his skin was some sort of latex rubber, whatever, something new they come up with. The stuff loved salt water, drank it up like a sponge. He blew up like a balloon. I mean, it didn't look like a shark, it looked like a puffer fish. It wasn't Bruce the shark, it was Paul the puffer fish. It was just. And so Spielberg was like, no, forget it. Get rid of all of that. We'll do it another way. We'll have the camera be Bruce, and then we'll have John's music. Hope it works, to create the dread and everything. And as anyone who's seen the movie can tell you, yeah, hey, it worked. I mean, it was really solid. And so they managed to get through that. Then one of the next things they had to deal with was the real shark. There's the scene where they catch the tiger shark.
Mhm.
What kind of a shark is it? It's a tiger shark. A what? That guy's going to be famous for that line. A what? The way he delivered it. But anyway, that was a real tiger shark, and they hung it up down at the harbor in Edgartown, where they did a lot of the filming, and it hung there for days out in the sun.
Oh yeah.
Now, as I said, the cottage my parents had was in Oak Bluffs, which was several miles away. My father swore he could smell that thing. It reeked. I mean, oh my God. And it was like the town fathers were like, would you please cut that thing down and throw it away? It's like, we got to finish the scenes. And finally, I think it was Spielberg made the decision. He's like, we don't know that we have all the footage we need, but we're going to cut it down. Throw it away, get rid of it. Any other scenes, we'll just angle the camera, so that the shark wouldn't be seen, and we'll continue that way. So anyway, and then of course the one of the most famous scenes of kind of the first time we really get a good look at the shark is what they call the pond or the lagoon attack scene, and which now the bridge there, they call it the Jaws Bridge. When I was a little kid, we just called it Second Bridge, and as kids we used to jump from it. And people still do to this day. In fact, last time we were up on the island, my son did it. We got him a T-shirt that says, "I jumped from the Jaws Bridge," And I'm like, geez, where's my shirt? I should have gotten mine about 50 years ago,
Right.
But anyway, when they filmed that, they're here at last. They had gotten Bruce working enough that they were able to have him make an appearance. And yeah, my sister was there on what this little tiny floating asylum, they called it. It was supposed to be just called the Garage, but no, they had a lot of other names for it. Most of them I can't repeat. And she would sit there with the crew, and they'd turn the hydraulic valves and be like, "Hey, come on, open his mouth, closer, move the tail." The tail fell off. Repair crew, please. And then, of course, they moved on to the second phase of the film, which all takes place on the Orca. And the thing is, again, in the movie, the Orca is supposed to be miles from land, way out just about the ocean. I mean, there's this one scene where the Orca is going away from the camera, and you can see from the distance some land or something. That's the one time you see land. That's the northern tip of Chappaquiddick Island. All of that footage with the Orca was filmed essentially at the beach, where the Kittner scene and the lagoon scene were filmed. They were like 100 yards off from the beach. They just had the cameras on the beach side looking out towards the open water. And so we just sat on the beach and watched the Orca just go back and forth, day after day, month after month. And Robert Shaw, he became legendary on the island of Martha's Vineyard. In fact, they're probably still talking about him. I think they've even composed some songs about that man, because he loved to tie it on. I mean, most famously, they say when he did the Indianapolis speech that he was pretty much half in the bag. Because when he was packing down those Narragansetts on the Orca, he was doing that for real. And plus all the other liquor that he had hidden around the set. Because he was going slowly insane. It's like I'm trapped on this island. Is this ever going to be done? Oh my God, this movie. And there were numerous times where Spielberg would get phone calls about 2-3 in the morning from one of the island police departments. They even say there was one night he got a call from every police department on the island, every town.
Oh, wow.
Saying, you need to come get Robert. Mr. Shaw is being belligerent. That's putting it nicely. And if you don't do something, we are going to throw him in the drunk tank. So yeah, he had quite his moments on the island, and of course, and then he and Richard Dreyfuss, they were bumping heads almost constantly. And again, so there were times when we're sitting on the beach watching them, and they're going nuts because they're sitting there waiting for some boat that's like way off at the distance. It's just slowly crawling along the horizon, and they're waiting for it to get out of the frame so they can shoot. because for some reason Spielberg was worried about continuity. Everyone's telling him, Stephen, look at the waves, look at the clouds. They're never the same way twice. Continuity, you worry about a boat in the background.
It's the ocean.
What's the ocean? Of course, there are going to be boats in the background. What do they're months and overdue, millions over budget, and everyone in the crew is calling it flaws instead of Jaws. And then their sister-in-law and all the other people stuck on the asylum, they were just ready to lynch Spielberg. They're like, this barge is too small. We need a bigger boat. Could you please get us a bigger boat? And then Roy Scheider goes and steals their line. Like, hey, shouldn't we get a writing credit for that? We need a bigger boat. Come on. They were just, as I say, going slowly insane dealing with that. And then, of course, then one of the big scenes, this is the one that scared me out of the theater the first time I saw the movie, was when Hooper goes down in the cage, the shark cage. Now, that was all real footage with or at least except when the shark is attacking the cage and bursting through the side. That was the mechanical. But the shark swimming around the cage and then it gets tangled up in the ropes and everything, that was a real great white. They sent a team down to Australia, got a small cage. They got a stuntman who was a little person because they wanted, the shark's supposed to be a 25-footer, and those are kind of rare for real life. So they figure if we have a small cage and a small person, it'll look big. Well, the problem was they put the cage in the water, and before the stuntman could get in the cage, the shark went nuts. Apparently, someone forgot to give the shark a copy of the script. Those damn production assistants. The shark went nuts, trashed the cage, and they had great footage, but there was no one in the cage. So Spielberg is like, how am I supposed to use this footage? This is where Hooper is supposed to get killed, and it's
right.
like, how can you film that? So that's when he came up with the idea of, okay, well, he'll escape out of the cage, hide in the bottom, and then he comes back at the end. So again, something they improvised on the fly there. They did a lot of that. I mean, to give you another example real quick, with Chrissy Watkins, her remains that they find on the beach there and in amongst the crabs, and then it's just this, you can see the head and the hand here. The production crew, the props people, had given Spielberg a mannequin, a store mannequin like you'd see, in a department store, giving him an arm and told him he could use that for the body. And it's like, it doesn't look like a real body. That's ridiculous. So on the fly, he just got a production assistant, says, okay, you got the same hair color as Chris, fine. You lay down here in the sand, put your hand up like this. We'll just kind of sprinkle a little sand on you. Boom, we get the shot. Poor woman didn't even get a credit in the in the credits there. Chrissy's remains played by.
Right.
Anyway.
That's interesting. I mean, you just hear all the details behind that, and that you had a close connection. Is really, really cool. But I know you have like a lot of different antic stories and stuff throughout your life. And what is something that you think of constantly? You always tell your friends, your buddies, like, hey, you'll never believe this, but one time there was a situation.
Oh, there was a fun little story. I mean, I love telling this one because kids today cannot understand it. They can't wrap their brains around this story. So I'll tell you this one. And again, it relates to Martha's Vineyard. And there was a time back in the 40s during World War II, there was concern about, the Nazis are going to invade, so we have to be prepared to repel them, And so on Martha's Vineyard, along what's called South Beach, which unfortunately it's not like the Florida's South Beach. It's just a beach on the south side of the island. And it's kind of boring, actually. Mainly we would go there because the waves were huge. And so because it's essentially just the open Atlantic to the south of the island. So really some pounding surf. Well, all along South Beach, they built these concrete bunkers, and put the cannons on them, machine gun nests and all that, and to repel the invasion. Well, after the war, they stripped out all the equipment and everything, but they just left the bunkers. And over time, they essentially just slid into the water. Because I mean, when they were built in the 40s, there was no environmental protection permitting or anything like that.
Right.
Back then, it's like, and especially, well, this is war. We have to make an exception. But they just went on the beach, smoothed out a flat area, poured the concrete, boom, your bunker's built. No deep foundation or anything. So these things just slid into the ocean. Well, by the time I came along and my friends, there was one bunker left, and it sat right where the waves broke. And so we would beg my mother to take us to South Beach so that we could go play in the bunker. And this is where, like I say, kids today, I tell them this, they're like, that's impossible. No parent would ever let you do that. Because the back of the bunker, the one towards the beach, it was all open. It had big metal gates, and of course they took those off. So we'd go inside this thing, and it was just essentially an empty room.
Mm-hmm.
And the ceiling was all cracked and broken, and this rebar. Have you ever seen these, the metal bars that they put inside concrete? There was a bunch of them hanging down, all rusted and corroded. And so we would stand in there, and the waves would break over the bunker, and the water would come around and come in the doors and come rushing at us. And we'd reach up and grab onto those rebars, and the water would push us back towards the front, essentially the front of the bunker. Then it would suck back and pull us back towards the beach, and we'd hang on. And then once the water was out, we'd put our feet down, like, oh, look at what we did! Whoa! And my mother's sitting up there on her towel in the beach, under her umbrella, and she's got her little, Harlequin romance or whatever. And just say, oh, that's nice, kids. Have fun. Great. Yeah. And just go back to reading. And we would do this. We would do this for hours. We loved it. This was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And man, did it wear us out. I mean, God, we were asleep long before the minute we got in the car, out cold. It's like, I think back to that and realize, oh my God, that was dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the rusty metal, we could have gotten sliced up. The ways we could have gotten thrown against a wall, we could have gotten sucked out into the ocean. But it's like, nope, we all survived completely unscathed. And like I say, I tell people, they're like, are you your mother should have been arrested for you should have been. Where was Child Protective Services?
They were just getting started.
yeah, I didn't have that back then, But, this was the 70s. That was the era where anybody could smack your kid. And you were like, bravo, good, well done. Don't worry, we'll give him double when he gets home, type of thing.
Yeah. And I can remember, because I grew up, I was born in 79 and then, raised pretty much through the 80s and 90s. And I can remember just being able to walk streets in my neighborhoods and not having to worry about anything. Kids still got kidnapped, but it wasn't what seems as frequent as today. You know what I'm saying? Especially with all this traffic and things. But it's just amazing how life, even in different eras, and you used to hear your parents, and now you're starting to tell stories back when I was younger, and all this stuff. And it's just amazing to see, there's still some people that are living that live before any of the more modern space travel, not space travel, but air travel was out. I mean, planes were a pretty new thing during World War I, and in World War II they got more advanced, and after that, and now it's a common thing. Back and forth. How you can get there. I mean, where I live here in Kentucky, it's a 4-hour flight to Vegas, and I just went there with my grandfather and my brothers last week. So it's, so it's just like one of those things, 4 hours, you can be somewhere that, it would take you, months and months to years to even walk to if you were back in the old days. So.
Yep. Actually, I have a funny little story concerning air flight. You want me to throw that in here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, some years back, thanks to the internet, made friends with a lot of different people all over the world. In fact, I have a couple of writing clients in Australia, of all places. This fellow that we worked together to create an animated TV series aimed at Muslim children. You ever seen the old Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, or
Yes.
Davy and Goliath? Okay, along those lines, the idea was to teach life lessons. And the children in the story are Muslim, so each life lesson is drawn from the tenets of the Muslim faith. And he wanted to do this because he says, geez, Muslims get a kind of bad rap these days, terrorism and all this. Like, I'd like a positive message. And so I helped him develop this series, and still pitching it around. But anyway, And then I also met this writing woman who lives on a kibbutz in Israel, Lower Galilee. I mean, it's amazing. She was born and raised in Ireland. She went to Israel when she was 16. Part of their, I think it's some pilgrimage thing they have to make. She met this local fellow who lives on a kibbutz, fell in love, got married. They lived there now. I mean, they're in their the 60s, I think, 60s or 70s, and lived there their whole life. Well, a couple of years back, she wrote to me saying, well, we're going to be flying to Las Vegas. My brother's turning 65, and we're all getting together for his birthday. So I was wondering, if we rent a car in Las Vegas, could we drive to Orlando and meet you? And I was like, well, I could. It's going to be a long drive. Really? How long? Well, probably a couple of days. Days? How big is America? He said, well, you got the internet. You didn't look at a map. I mean,
Yeah.
because again, you look at Israel, pretty much no part of the country is more than like 2-3 hours from any other part. They do not understand. Some of them don't understand the size of our country. So she said, well, okay, we'll fly. So they flew in, and we met them at the Orlando airport, and Trudy and Ari. And Ari, when I saw him, oh my God, I was like, dude, do you have to be such a stereotype? I mean, he's the short belly and the long beard, and he's got the yarmulke on, and it's like, I was so tempted. I wanted to burst into song, if I were a rich man. But I'm like, no, behave yourself. But anyway, so they stayed with us for several days, and we took them to like SeaWorld. And here's a funny little bit for you. The most incredible thing to Ari in all of SeaWorld was a squirrel.
Really?
Yeah. We took him to the dolphin show and the seal and the walrus show and everything. And then we're on our way to Shamu Stadium, and there's this woman feeding peanuts to a squirrel. And because you know how the squirrels are in these theme parks, they're practically tame. They've been around people so much. And Ari just was like in total awe. What is that? It's a squirrel. Really? What is that? What? It's like, just a kind of a rodent animal. And it's like, well, they don't have squirrels or skunks or a lot of other animals in Israel. He'd never seen this. And so he's getting the video camera out, the still camera out. And he's like, Ari, the Shamu show is about to start. Come on, no, I got to get this. I got to show the family this. He was just in awe of a squirrel. And I was like, well, I guess, if you've never seen something, that is what's important to you to examine. And as I say, they stayed with several days, and then we took them to the airport, and they flew on home. And we still keep in touch via the emails and chat and what have you.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, you just see some of the experience from the World Cup. It just happened here in the United States, and all the people realizing, hey, this country is massive. It's not an exaggeration, and it is. People just to get that culture, difference. Those European countries, they're real small compared to what we have over here. A couple of them don't even fit in the size of Texas altogether.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
That's for sure.
So, Drew, one of the things I want to do, because I want to thank you for coming on the show, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody, what you do, promote anything that you have that you do, because we know you're a writer, and you may have some things out there that you want people to be aware of, and maybe even have ways to contact you.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, for one thing, here, I got these stories about Martha's Vineyard. I put a bunch of them. There's about, I don't know where you can see that.
I can see
Martha's Vineyard, My Island, My Memories. That's me on the cover, age 3. And I'm at the Gay Head Cliffs. You see the clay cliffs?
Yes.
It's now, the Gay Head has now gone back to the Wampanoag name, Aquina. But anyway, I just put them together as a collection and self-published it. And it's currently available. You can get it on Amazon as a Kindle. And then I also have a couple of other books that I've had published. Now, these are actual paperbacks. This one, Worst Date, Greatest Adventure. This one is, if you're familiar with Outlander, this is rather similar. A time travel story, a young couple, they're on Martha's Vineyard. Again, I draw on what I know, but they go back in time to the time of the Revolutionary War and have a series of adventures. The first two, this is a trilogy. The first two books are out: Worst Date, Greatest Adventure, Worst Date, Greatest Challenge, and I'm working on the third book.
That's amazing.
So that's my time travel trilogy, and then I have this one, Vampire Academia, and this is I call it kind of a modern day vampire story because I treat vampirism as an actual disease, a virus that people contract. So it's not like they're evil. It's just, well, geez, we got to drink blood and we got to avoid the sun, you know. And so they become the new minority. And it tells the story of this young girl, Rosemary, she's her parents, she gets turned, and the dishonor of it all. Her parents ship her off to this private academy that claims they can cure her, make her a norm, a normal. And so, of course, you can see there are certain subtext there.
Right.
And the other thing, I'll show this. This is a poster. My movie, Wiccan's Lair. Now, I made this movie, more than 20 years ago now. Right here in Orlando, small indie company. I was the writer. I'm the guy that gets butchered by the monster, get my guts ripped out and everything. But a very small scale production. I mean, we threw this thing together for practically nothing. Well, I signed a contract with Blood Pack Productions. They are going to be distributing that movie.
Oh, that's really cool.
The idea is to do it as DVDs and Blu-rays, and then also put it on streaming services like Tubi. And so I just the last I heard from them just this earlier this week, the one of the production people said, "Well, do you have a poster or something?" So I scanned this and sent them the JPEG. So that's yet another thing that's in production. I also write for a podcast. It's kind of almost like an old-fashioned radio show. It's a comedy group called Canned Meat Theater, and they have a website you can go to. And every month they do these little skits, like 3, 5, 7-minute little comedy things. It's all audio, like I say, it's like old-fashioned radio. And they've done a number of my little skits on that.
Awesome, man.
So
that's really cool.
I keep very busy.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like it. And if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, I would say just go with email. And my email is Doctor Who AR, and that's DR. Don't spell it out, just DR, WHOAR, my initials, at hotmail.com. And I lead the Orlando chapter of the Florida Writers Association. It's a nonprofit group. Our motto is Writers Helping Writers. And so if there are writers out there that, hey, they want help, they've got questions about, well, geez, how do I format for this? And, what's the right way to do a screenplay? Or, how do I create an outline? Hey, I'm more than willing to help you folks out. I also have a whole list of probably about 8-10 different subjects where I do lectures on different types of writing. So if someone out there is like, geez, we got a group here in, East Overshoe, Vermont, and we'd love to have you speak. Could we line up a Zoom meeting some evening or on the weekend or something and have you come talk to us? Hey, I'm more than happy to. I'm always glad to help other writers that are struggling, that have, writer's block, and are looking for someone that can help them out a bit.
That's really cool. And a lot of people need it. I need help writing sometimes myself. So I'm like, oh, it's one of those things too. It's like, you don't realize how much that skill can benefit you in life until later. You really just like, oh, I need to write these, massive corporate emails, and I got to do all this other stuff. And, Grammarly's nice, but sometimes Grammarly just doesn't sound like you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, well, one thing I wrote here real quick. Let me show this. You can see that, Love Among the Ruins. It's the biography of my parents, how they met.
Oh, that's
cool.
That's
them on the picture, or on the cover. They're about to kiss at their wedding.
That is cool.
What I did is they met during World War II. My father was in the U.S. Army, and my mother was an Italian girl living in Florence, Firenze, as she calls it. and I took all of my dad's old war stories that he used to tell me. Back in the spring of '42, I was da 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 da. And I finally wrote them all down. And then my mother, she had written her autobiography. So I took the two and put them together and made that book. And once again, the Kindle is up still up on Amazon. I don't know, maybe the paperback is too. I didn't really write it with the idea of, getting published or anything like that. It was so that I could self-publish it, get copies, and give them to all my family members. And my oldest brother, Steve, he took one look at the cover and cried.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Bet.
He just thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
There's mom and dad, boy, they're getting married and they're about to, it's just so lovely. He loved it.
Drew, again, I appreciate everything you did for me coming on the show. Maybe we can reconnect at a later date and maybe tell some more stories. I'm definitely going to check out those books and we'll see what goes from there.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, I got a ton of other stories. If you check out the website, Grub, Grub, Street, all spelled out, .ca, it's a Canadian thing. They have probably, several hundred, if not thousands of my short stories, and you can read a whole bunch of them there. So some funny, some sad, some touching, and some, quite political. But anyway, it would give you a further taste of some of my storytelling ability.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll definitely check that out. And thank you again.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and good luck to you. I hope this goes well for you.
This episode of It's Your Break was not a paid advertisement. It's Your Break is a news and entertainment podcast. The thoughts and comments of the host or guest are those of the individual speaking, and not necessarily that of It's Your Break or Spark a Vision. Follow It's Your Break on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at It's Your Break. Subscribe and follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeart. This podcast is owned, produced, and distributed by Spark a Vision, and is hosted by Jonathan Mertz. Copyright It's Your Break and Spark a Vision. All rights reserved.